So, you know that oil stuff? The ancient, dead, crushed, and fermented dinosaur stuff, which also happens to be highly explosive? Yeah, that stuff. It does have a lot of uses, such as heating your home, fueling transportation, and also like making electricity so you can have that phone you're using to watch TikTok right now. I see you. But it does have a wee bit of a problem. It is quite smelly, and by smelly, I mean killing and starving thousands of people on a daily basis levels of smelly. In fact, the sheer stank of it is causing billions of dollars to be invested in alternatives for our oily goop, primarily alternatives such as solar and wind. Unfortunately, as corporations have already injected copious quantities of money into their oil ventures, and as money is the life and soul of your local soulless corpo, trying to get them to give up their oil is like trying to stop your pit bull from assaulting your cousins. You can try, and you can even get a foothold, but ultimately they will rapidly claw their way back to their goal, be it a fat stack of cash or your infant cousin. And that is exactly why politicians' regulations don't usually work. So maybe to make a corpo do what you want has to make them some money. Quick history lesson. We've actually had a couple very similar situations in the past, like with asbestos. Despite the various corporations peddling asbestos, claiming that the substance is completely safe and squeaky clean, everyone who went so far as to even be in the same room as this stuff were dropping dead after a few short years. And obviously it got brought to court, but as the corpos had nothing better to do, they hit those judges with a fat "nuh-uh," and they got away with it for decades. Even today, actually, asbestos still isn't completely banned. Meanwhile, various products like aerosols and refrigerators were emitting chemicals that were melting our ozone layer. For those of you who do not know what that is, the ozone layer shields the surface from deadly radiation, which, for hopefully obvious reasons, one may not want blasted into their face. Fortunately, when a bunch of world governments got together to ratify a treaty to stop all this, the responsible corporations did nothing. Well, these governments came up with new products that did not go punching holes in our atmosphere that were actually more profitable. Ultimately, then, it seems that these sun suckers, wind pumpers, water dammers, magma huggers, and atom punchers need to be more profitable than those oil boomers and coal cookers in order to solve today's problems. But what makes these kinds of things profitable? Well, I do enjoy living in my cardboard street box as much as the next guy, but having a well paying job is kind of important, or even having a job, period. And some suits in a fancy building told me that every dollar spent on renewables creates 3 times as many jobs as that spent on oil and coal. And based on their portfolio, I think I might just believe them. But to a corpo, that means having to pay 3 times as many wages. Outrageous, they exclaim. Hey, buddy, you want to know what else is outrageous? Oil, for like 80% of us, is not produced locally. And when that oil stops flowing, or worse, someone new starts flowing oil, people decide to start throwing lead instead. And I don't know about you, but my car runs on gas, not lead. Speaking of cars, we don't just use oil for making power. And because of that, if a car or a heating or plastic corpo give a higher price, oil corpos are going to have to sell their war-throttled supply to the most desperate capitalists, inevitably leading to quite volatile prices for your oily electricity. Oil has a lot of volatility in both its supply and demand, yet somehow our economy doesn't implode. Governments around the world spent $7 trillion in 2022 for keeping oil from exploding, while $4.5 trillion were invested in renewables, which have also seen a drastic price drop that oil did not get as their technology got better from this investment. On that subject, the jank in the prices for renewables and oils makes a Western family tree look quite simple. This jank comes from the fact that if you take into account the cost of agricultural damages from using stuff like oil and coal, and the savings by replacing that usage with renewables, then the prices get shifted big time. Among the ashes, it seems that renewable energies are already winning in the market, overtaking our classical sources of energy and pulling ahead. Even if you believe actions do not have consequences and ignore the price reduction from stopping agricultural damage, renewables still rival, if not beat, coal and oil in economy. So, if you ask me, with a little bit of politics and time, our melting world will hopefully start melting a little slower.